Okay, thank you, Mirela. And then over to Gurley, our president, to open the event.
I think Marilla would like to say something first.
Yes, sorry, I was waiting for the recording to to start. So I want to welcome everyone and thank for the participation at this special event. For those of you who don't know me, I'm the PWA membership director for the session of 2020-2021. And the reason we are here, it's mainly because one of the effects that the Nobel Peace Prize has is that every year it triggers a lot of discussions around peace, and it involves the entire world. The award that the World Food Programme received in 2020 happened in a context in which the world was devastated by the coronavirus. So maybe the discussion kept gravitating too much around the COVID issue, and we felt like this award didn't receive enough visibility. So we grew more curious, and we wanted to explore more from closer what this prize means for the World Food Programme organization. So we took advantage of the fact that we had Gabrielle among our members. She's one of the directors in the World Food Programme, and not only that she accepted to give her testimony, but she involved some of her colleagues. So we thank all of you for accepting to participate here tonight, and we are looking forward to listen to your testimony. Right. And now, Gurley, I pass it to you so I don't take too much time.
Welcome. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Gurley Saura, president of PWA, Professional Women's Association of Rome, an association that promotes gender equality, empowerment, and leadership of women in the world of work. Together with the board of directors comprised of 12 women of different backgrounds and cultures. Since 1992, PWA has been operating in Rome as a non-profit association. PWA has always been promoting the importance of role of women in society, rewarding both diversity and sustainability, and believes that now more than ever, the social, cultural restart of our economy depends on strengthening of women in the world of work. Tonight, join me in congratulating the World Food Programme for the award and for all the work they have done. We call on individuals, organizations, and nations to support WFP by making their work easier and fighting for a greener, more just future and a world without war. There is a clear lesson to be drawn from this. So, without further ado, allow me, with immense pleasure, I welcome my colleague, a friend, and outstanding PWA member, Gabrielle Kluck, to introduce her colleague, the women of WFP, who have been working on the front lines of emergencies for many years, bringing hope to millions caught in conflict and hunger.
Thank you, Gurley, and that's really a very beautiful opening and introduction of this session. And I was very pleased with the request from PWA for a session on World Food Programme being awarded the Nobel Peace Prize, and also through that highlight the work of some of my special and valued colleagues here. This was supposed to be a session with 4 women of 4 continents and working on 4 continents, but one is having internet problems. So we're now 3 women from 3 continents. So I hope that we will be able to get the number 4 also on board anytime soon. But I'd like Cheryl and Keiko, who are here now with us, to introduce themselves. And Keiko, can I start with you? It's 2 o'clock in the morning for you, and you make a very special effort to be up at night and join us from Japan.
Sure. Hello. Buonasera, Rome. I lived in Rome like 10 years almost. So my piece of heart is in Rome. So I wish I were there with you. But otherwise, I really, COVID is an opportunity. So I can be connecting with all of you like this way. It's, yeah, 2 o'clock, 2:30 in Japan. So Gabrielle especially, and then the PWA members, thank you so much for this opportunity. I'm obviously from Japan. I've got this academic background, is master's from Mexico in economics, and then UK business school master's MBA I have, and almost 30 years in working in the United Nations system, in particularly WFP, like 25 years. I now came back to native Japan. My second act, I called it. I don't want to call it a retirement because I consider myself too early to be retired. And then, in fact, what I'm doing, a lot of things. One of the things I'm doing is this women's encouragement and leadership. So then I see a lot of synergy here. So I want to connect the dots and then the world. So I'm just an immediate member of you. The other thing that I want to tell you is I'm an author, international best-selling author is What Grandma Taught Me. This, I wrote it in the COVID lockdown. And then I have this, my first book is Japanese. It's about my grandmother's life. It's always a grandmother because I can't wait to be a grandmother. And this I wrote in Afghanistan lockdown. Almost I need a lockdown to write a book. But my last duty station was Kyrgyzstan. I don't know if you know Kyrgyzstan is a former Soviet Union, one of the Stan country, Afghanistan, Pakistan, Kazakhstan, Tajikistan, all this Stan country. I was a deputy representative there. So you can imagine this all COVID and a managing office with a country director. So that was a challenge, and just stuck in my little apartment. I go really, cuckoo. So this project kept me sane. So that's one of the things that I'm doing now in Japan, speaking engagement, and then speaking to my former school, etc. So I stop here. Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you.
And thank you, Keiko. And you've been working in different functions with WFP, like head of donors relations, also as a program officer, and then recently as a deputy country director in the Kyrgyz Republic in Bishkek. Very interesting part of the world that is not on everyone's list for a holiday, right? So, and also we just learned about a new coping mechanism during COVID, writing books. So, and then I'd like to go to Cheryl. Cheryl, can I let you introduce yourself, please?
Great, thanks, Keiko. That's fantastic. I can't wait for my second act, I have to tell you. That sounds great. So I'm Cheryl Harrison. Right now, I've just assumed a new position in WFP. I'm the Deputy Director of Cash-Based Transfers, and I'll tell you a little bit more about what that means, maybe a little bit later this evening. But I started in WFP in 2002. Prior to that, I was a lecturer in women's studies. In fact, gender and development are my academic home. And so I was I taught at the University of Victoria for a number of years before moving into WFP. My first position in WFP was actually in Rome. And it was in the gender service, so I was drawing heavily on my academic background. After that, I've spent the last 13 years in East Africa and North Africa, so Nairobi, Kampala, and my previous position to this one was deputy representative for our operation in Sudan, in Khartoum, based in Khartoum. So I spent my first COVID lockdown in Khartoum during Ramadan. That was really something. I didn't write a book. I didn't write a book though. I should have been reaching out to Keiko. She could have guided me on how to spend my lockdown more productively. Anyways, I'm really excited to be here tonight. So thanks, everyone.
Great. Well, thank you, Cheryl, and great to have you in Rome and now in a very special position with cash-based transfers, about which we want to also hear something more, because the World Food Programme originally started basically, and correct me if I'm wrong, with throwing bags out of airplanes to people who were surviving either natural or disasters or conflict. Wars and conflict. But now we have a very sophisticated system developed to provide, as we call our beneficiaries, those who receive our services, in the forms of vouchers or even cash money in which they themselves can buy what they're, according to their needs, which is profitable for the local market, for local produce, for, localization instead of globalization, as well as contributes to the dignity of people who already have these huge issues to face, like hunger and conflict and disaster, and sometimes all three of those, right? So and interesting to hear later on a little bit more. So our third guest from WFP would have been Mutinta Chimuka. Let me introduce her in her absence. That Mutinta Chimuka is from Zambia. She works also several years with WFP in different positions, has been recently the representative and country director of WFP in Djibouti, supporting the Yemen humanitarian operations, because Djibouti has a big port, and from there many ships, and I've been there myself, I've seen the ships being loaded and go to Aden, where she's now, but also to Hargeisa and other ports in Yemen. And now she is head and director of the office in Aden herself in Yemen. Today she was outside of the office, meeting with beneficiaries and representatives of groups that she is supporting. And we had her here on the screen, and then suddenly she fell away. So in those areas, as you can imagine, we face this kind of internet connections. So we hope that any moment she is able to connect back and hear from her herself. But meanwhile, we continue, and then very briefly about myself. So I'm really pleased to be called a long-term WFP member. So that's about 4 years and 2 months. That's not that long. And I hope to be a member for many more years. I love this network for 2 reasons. First, I love supporting women. A very famous person has said there is a place in hell for those women who don't support other women. And, we need each other. We need to step on each other and, be the step for others as well. And the other thing is I really enjoy the company of women, specifically as I have worked mainly in male-dominated fields and male-dominated organizations and companies. I really love, and I notice I relax more in the company of women. I feel more akin. There's just something different. And then this network, the PWA specifically, has this wonderful balance between, being able to get terrific topics and speakers, as well as this sense of cohesion and togetherness that we all need, and specifically in these times of COVID. So very briefly, my background is a Master of Science in Business Administration and also psychology. And I've been all my professional life interested in how the interface between an organization and its culture and the individuals is, and how we can create work environments where individuals can really thrive, can work well together, and in positive, supportive environments. So that's also why I became an organizational ombudsman about 11 years ago now. I've started to work for Shell. This might surprise a few of you, for several years, and then for KPMG as a consultant for big organizations. And then I got fed up with that, and I started working for the UN. And WFP is my fifth UN organization, and talking about Nobel Peace Prizes. for me, this is my fourth UN organization that has been awarded a Nobel Peace Prize. It is, though, the only one who was awarded the prize while I was on board. I worked for the Atomic Energy Agency, who got the Nobel Peace Prize in 2005. I worked for the UN Secretariat, who together with Kofi Annan got it awarded in 2001. And I worked for Peacekeeping Operations, who got it awarded in 1988. And then now for WFP, who got it awarded in 2020. So I never realized that until WFP got the Nobel Peace Prize, that I had worked for 3 others. So that's quite remarkable. So going then back to Keiko to start with, the Nobel Peace Prize and your work in WFP, what does it mean for you in your work? What changes have you seen, and what do you expect to further see happen because of this Peace Prize being awarded? Keiko.
Yes, now listening to you, I think you, Gabrielle, you brought us this Nobel Prize. I was so happy in October, and I came back to Japan November last year, no? And then it was like a perfect fanfare for me. And of course, for all of us, the past and then the future generation WFP, because it's a ultimate brand, I call it. Like a Chanel or Louis Vuitton. I'm thinking about the Italian brand, like Prada, Ferragamo, Fendi. I love them, but that's an ultimate brand, meaning that it's not just a brand, fancy brand, but it's a quality, and then also way of living, you know, like a Coco Chanel, how she lived, all this passion and everything that the love. It's not just the CC, you know, Coco Chanel or Prada, and then Versace, and then this life, I mean, way of living. So that's WFP has it, this DNA, I still keep it. And then that's, I was telling my staff in Kyrgyzstan also, once you're in, you have this DNA, just get it done, you know, action. That was like my passion. So that's the meaning. And then I had a chat with the Japan office colleagues in January. It's amazing, the trust that is creating. The funds are going up. Just October to January, 25% went up. When I was serving in Japan office, the private sector funding, we were so happy, thrilled to have $1 million. Now $20 million. I was like, wow. And then already they have got 400 schools asking them to come in and speak. And it's a small office of 7 people. Because of course, people wants to hear about the field experience, etc. So 7 people is among, you know, the national officers included. So maybe 2, 3. So I said, well, use me or use Kenro or use retired people, you know.
Second act people.
Yeah, second act people. So yeah, that's what I said. So it's amazing, the people trust, because it's an ultimate brand. So then they trust us much more. So I'm so happy. But then also, as executive directors said it various occasions, it's a responsibility for the future, that this ultimate brand ask us to stand taller, stand stronger for the needs of the world right now. So that responsibility is there. But it's so too bad that Mutinta is not here, because we were in Afghanistan together. I hope she will come back. But executive director at the Security Council, he was referring to Yemen, ever courageous. He said, this is I do because we have this responsibility. So makes us more brave. So that's what this means.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm so happy. And then just one last point is, it's a peace prize.
Right.
Oh my gosh, I remember it was so tough to pitch for WFP and then peace, for this peace building fund in New York. I was telling them it is a food, the basic needs, and then giving young people the means to live, like a cash and voucher that then Cheryl will tell us. Give them the future. Otherwise, I have seen so many young people in Afghanistan blown them up, themselves up, kamikaze, because they have no hope for the future. So I tried to pitch, but they said, food for work. What about sustainability? It's not the typical development, but the fact of the matter is a cause and the consequences. WFP deal with so many people to feed now because the consequence of lack of peace, war. So, let us be relevant, let us be, it's with this ultimate blend, we can go into that. I mean, nobody with questions, I said, peace is not just telling them a training, love yourself, each other, love each other. It's not. You need to have a means. The young people needs to have a job, then we have seen so many food for work. We have given the technical assistance to the young people, like making furniture, etc. Batkin, that is a border area, Tajikistan, but that was a very difficult pitch. But then now I hope this is gonna be easier, and then the people believe it. Yeah. Thank you.
No, but thanks. That's terrific, Keiko. And there's actually three main things really that you said, like the brand, like a Prada, and that deals with the DNA of WFP, which is getting things done. And that's also what the Nobel Peace Prize Committee said, right? We're there in the most difficult circumstances where nobody else comes. WFP is in, often the first, paves the way for others, right? So that is certainly one of the reasons. And also what I find terrific about WFP myself is that no mountain is high enough, right?
And then this prize belonged to the colleagues that Mutinta and I have a very good friend in Afghanistan who also lost in this the flight crash. So those who ultimate sacrifice the job, so the past and the future, and then especially those who lost their lives, ultimate sacrifice in feeding the vulnerable population in the world.
Yeah, no, thank you for that addition. And you also said the trust that it now creates in us as an organization, which comes with more funding. And that is, of course, exactly what we need. And that also is then linked that now Nobel Peace Prize, ending hunger and saving lives, and ending hunger and also seeing hunger as a weapon of war, which our executive director clearly talked about, and also the Nobel Peace Prize Committee clearly talked about, is a link that previously not always made, right? Whereas using hunger as a weapon of war is known from the sieges of the Middle Ages. Talk about Italy, right? Talk about Rome as well. So these things are now more on the forefront, and that comes with the responsibility, as you said. So thank you. And one remark, and then I go to Cheryl. You said also about people give the ultimate prize or give their lives. And of course, now 2 years ago, almost, we were faced with this horrific plane that went down, the Boeing MAX 7, whatever it was, went down in Ethiopia, and we had 8 colleagues die in an instant. And not only those colleagues that we think about often, but also all the other ones. We have a wall in our office with all their names, and there's always flowers underneath, and you see it when you come in and when you leave the building. And it's very important to understand that also this work in the front lines is not happening without even the risk of your life, right? So that said, I go over to Cheryl, and with the same questions. Cheryl, what does the prize mean for you and for your work?
I'll just pick up where Keiko and you left off, which is that the prize shone a spotlight on WFP, but really on humanitarian work, and a spotlight that hasn't maybe been there before. It's exciting because I think a lot of the work that we do as humanitarians is not very well understood. It's very demanding work. When you're working in the field, you are on call 24/7. You're working with people who are in, who have gone through terrible trauma, and they're in very, very difficult places in their lives. Often they've lost their home, their family. They've been, subjected to horrible violence. And you work with these people on a daily basis, and struggle as best you can to try to at least make sure they have food on the table. So one of the first sort of really exciting, I mean, after the wow moment kind of started to fade, one of the first most exciting parts about having won the prize was this spotlight and the opportunity we have now to step aside and let that spotlight shine on the people that we serve, really surface their voices. And I think that that's our big challenge right now is, it's worth more than additional funding, frankly, because once these voices come to the surface at a global level, there will be a new wave of humanitarianism, I think, worldwide. And there will be a new relationship between the people who have and the people who don't have in this world. And that's what, frankly, we need. Now, from my particular piece of WFP, it's also very exciting because, I mean, you heard about Keiko talking about how difficult it was to pitch new ideas, to be able to step outside of the box and say, listen, peace is very important to solving hunger. Hunger is very important to solving peace. It's been difficult on a number of fronts to have people understand the dots and connect the dots with us. This prize didn't just give us permission to step outside of our food mandate. There's an expectation now that we're operating outside of that mandate. Now, I know quite a bit about this kind of pain point of moving beyond the food brand in WFP because for more than 10 years now, I have been heavily engaged in using cash transfers to be able to help people. So like Gabrielle said, and as you can imagine, in some cases, it's just not possible to give people cash. And so we bring them food because that's all that we can do. And that's the most appropriate thing. But very often, actually, we can give people cash, and it just gives them so much more flexibility. I mean, think about the a refugee mother, for example. She's run with her children and usually a few chickens and a mattress, and everything that she can carry and her kids can carry. And she's run across the border from South Sudan because the fighting has come to her village and she has had to flee herself and a whole bunch of other people from the village. And they run across the border into Uganda. So the very first thing that we are able to give to her is like some high energy biscuits so that the kids get immediately some energy back because they're looking pretty tired and worn out. Then we can give her some food that she can cook. Grain and beans and vegetable oil and salt. And then a few weeks later, she's getting pretty tired of that food. And so are the kids. It's like the same meal day in, day out, because it's really not possible to give in kind tens of thousands of tons, which is what we do in these big refugee operations, tens of thousands of tons a month of really, you know, diverse food. But if we give her cash, especially once she's started to settle a little bit, she can go to the market and she can buy onions, tomatoes, you know, whatever, hopefully even a little bit of meat. So it's really transformative for the women. Suddenly they're not carrying the 50 kg bags of grain back and cooking the same meal for their family every single day. It's empowering for them because they can decide, well, maybe some of the money they don't need for food. Maybe medicine actually is the most, you know, urgent thing because their child has malaria or what have you. So this, you know, when WFP first started using cash about 10 years ago, it was a very small kind of sideshow in WFP, and it was very hard to explain to people why we were the World Food Program and we were actually giving cash. So at that time, we were doing about $10 million a year in cash, very, very small in terms of our global program of work. Now, last year, we did 2.1 billion in cash. So $2.1 billion we gave to just a little over 30 million people. And that's 40% of WFP's program of work. So massive growth in the last 10 years in being able to use cash. Now, the great thing about the prize is we can talk about cash just so that people can buy food, or we can talk about what money does when you put a lot more of it into a lot more women's hands, and the economics behind that, and the economic arguments behind empowering women economically. Suddenly we have permission to talk about things like that. So it's a very exciting time in WFP, frankly.
Thank you, Cheryl. And that's a great explanation about cash-based transfers. And just to add to that, for those who are interested, this doesn't all go cash in hand, but there is vouchers, or you have a certain amount available to your name that even with your, you know, like we do in Jordan, right, at the refugee camp for Syrians in Jordan, where they use their iris of the eye to pay at the supermarket, right? So there is a lot of technology behind it, also to make sure that the right people get this kind of support. And now technology supports us in that as well. So you also say the same thing about the spotlight that is on humanitarian work. And I think what you said, that it's not always well understood. What does it mean to be humanitarian? What does it mean to devote your life to be humanitarian internationally and help others? And as you said, also to be confronted with people who are traumatized and have such a history of suffering, not only history, but live that in the moment, where you wonder, you know, how can you help them best to provide a new future, right? And where is the hope in these moments? And then you say about, you painted such a good picture of a refugee mom with her children and chickens and mattresses, right? And whatever else she can carry, and how important it is that somebody has that dignity of choice and can also make better choices for herself that better are aligned with the needs of that moment, right? So and that's a very new development in humanitarian aid. And apart from that, it works so positively on the people who receive it. It's of course very different if the refugees, beneficiaries as we call them, buy at the local market and support local people who maybe struggle to make a decent living, instead of us importing food from other countries, transporting it, right? Which at times when we need to do, we still do that, right? But very interesting, Cheryl, and thank you for sharing that. I thought also what was important is that you said a new wave of humanitarianism. So we have to look at those who have and those who have not, and it is in some ways disappointing from my point of view that in the 21st century, the income gaps have never been so big as they are now. And that not only the dependence of individuals, of governments, or of humanitarian organizations, but also from this elusive 1% that earn so much and even have made during the COVID an extra 400 billion in a few months, as compared to the whole budget of our organizations, which was 8.3 or something last year, to help over 100 million people. We need to look also broader at that picture. And for my hope is that the Nobel Peace Prize shines a light on that big problem in the world of huge inequalities and huge lack of access to independence that is happening to those people who have the money, who are not inside governmental structures and therefore are not into structures where you can expect that a certain responsibility of decision making is being expected, right? So that is for me very important about the Nobel Peace Prize. As ombudsman, I am within the organization saying, if it's great we got the Nobel Peace Prize and very deserving, and let's do the best with this. Now also let us get a Nobel Prize for having the best work environment. So that people in our organization can really thrive and can be themselves, can be authentic, can shine every day, can give their best, because in the end it's the people you just talk about, that we help on a daily basis, that will benefit from when we are able to be our best. So I'm going over to the, I got a message from Mirela. Watch the time, she says. Thank you, Mirela. And I also see there's another question, but let me first go and to the last question. Oh, it's not the last question. It's actually only the second. You're right. I thought already we were on the second. So, and I'm coming back to Cheryl. How is it for you to work in an international organization like the World Food Programme now? And what made you choose this work?
Okay, well, thanks, and I'll keep this one short. I mean, in Sudan, for example, I had my team was about 500 staff, and in that 500 staff, we had more than 50 different nationalities. It is incredible. It is amazing. The stories, the background of the people that you interact with, it's addictive for anyone who is like keenly interested in people, and knowing more about people and how they live around the world. So frankly, one of the most exciting parts for me about working with WFP is getting to work with people from so many different backgrounds. And one of the funnest parts about, WFP is very mobile. So we move like every 2, 3, 4 years, it depends. One of the most exciting parts for me always is that first 6 months to a year in a new country where you're learning about the political system, you're learning about the socioeconomic system, you're meeting people in the government, in the private sector. You really get to study. You immerse yourself in the country, and if you're good at languages, you learn a new language. I'm not so great at languages, so I haven't picked up much Swahili or Arabic, but yeah, I mean, it's just it's a part of the work that we do that I think a lot of people don't know that much about. It's fascinating. It's a real up close, personal way to get to know many people from many different cultures in a relatively short period of time.
Great. Well, that sounds also very enticing to me, and it's certainly also a reason why I love working for United Nations. But let's go back to Japan. And Keiko, what made you choose to work in an organization like WFP, and how has it been for you?
Yes, it was my dream to work for the UN. I couldn't stand seeing this skeleton like starving children on the TV. So my vision was to create a world that my grandchildren doesn't have to see this on the TV, you know, like putting in the museum, like Auschwitz I visited. How can humanity could do such a cruel thing? How come there are enough food in the world and these children are starving while they are obese in the other part of the world? So that was my vision. And then I was disappointed. I mean, the world is not a better place now after 30 years in there. So that was my vision. And but yeah, I'm continuing. And just referring to what has been discussed, WFP has challenges also, like diversity, etc. And then Gabriella and then I met online because Ombudsman's mission to Kyrgyzstan, and then really precious. But in the precious because she acted. She did a lot of changes, and then also I heard she spoke to the executive board. So yeah, that was really precious. Okay, going back, so that was my vision. And then like Cheryl said, it's like almost like a reincarnation, yeah, I mean 5 years in Indonesia, 4 years in Japan, and then it's like my past life, and then my Afghanistan, like I always said, my life book. Without a chapter in Afghanistan, 2.5 years, I cannot speak about my book. So that's that. And then also now that I'm sort of out of the organization, but this alumni is so ever, I'm part of this alumni now, those retiree, they are so active. And yeah, so I really hold it as I told my staff, WP DNA, it's like a permanent tattoo on you, so you cannot rub it. So now that my second act, I talk to the girls, and then believe it or not, after 30 years coming back to Japan hasn't changed in terms of this gender. My
Right.
God, how my father talks to me, it's almost like a verbal abuse. Even my Italian boss used to say, could you, Keiko, do this? And thank you, those men in Japan, that age. Of course, I know this, his father was like that, and etc. Oh, this culture and etc. But I have a role here to change. And then I'm owing to the next generation girls. So that 30 years, sometimes I have to remind myself of who I am, and then what the gift I have had with this WFP.
Yeah, well, thank you both for your answers there. So the addictiveness of working internationally, but because you meet other cultures, you get immersed, it becomes part of who you are. That's what I hear you both say, the fascination of that. And in addition, also the alignment with the goals of the United Nations, Keiko, you in particular, was also for me the reason to stop working for a profit organization in my home country and start applying for the UN. I was basically fed up with also the lack of purpose, and other than making more money, and also the lack of a higher goal. This is certainly what made me choose for UN, and it became the Atomic Energy Agency first. Also, what I hear you say, the gender aspect for women in particular, and Keiko, you now come back to Japan, and Japan has been in a standstill, and it'd be interesting to link with Kristen Envik, who is also joining with us tonight, the CEO and founder of Women's International Networking, because she has conferences in Japan and she's lived and worked there herself. And so you should connect together to talk about this some more and how to further the change there. But yesterday evening, I had a session with our Ministry of Trade and Development in the Netherlands, where she also talked about that sometimes career outside of my countries are for women easier to make than inside. That also the Netherlands is backwards when it is about women's progress and inclusion of women. So I also that also was one of the reasons for me to leave the Netherlands and look internationally. So coming to the next question then. Staying with Keiko, so what drove your career success, or as a woman in WFP, and in such a multicultural environment? What drove it? What helped you? What was it that made you do these different functions and have a career?
Yeah, I mean, success depends. I don't have but for me, it is a success. It's not just going up ladder, but yeah, this experience that with the WFP. Yeah, that is a success. But then I just for the younger generation, I want to say this is the flexibility. Now 85 years old, my father, I love him, all this, he's criticizing me, like how to drive the car, all this because he's frustrated. He's aging father, but still I love him. I just, don't get me wrong, but then it is a time to be with him, because I couldn't see my mother passing away, etc. So yeah, this is a decision. So just flexible, follow your heart. And then another thing I was always telling my staff is, this is after COVID, it's a transformation. Transformation is not just a status quo. That's what I love about WFP. The climate change. I was in the head of conference in the executive board, looking at all these conversations, Cheryl, cash and voucher, how many discussions? The change is very difficult. The climate change, and then the peace. At least the climate change like more than 10 years. But, this mandate. But the mandate was created in 1945. No more relevant to the world. So let us do the job. Let us give you a solution. That is what it is. Like even pleasure or pain, and you give a solution. And then that's why we gained this prize. So I tell, it's a transformation is needed here. So young generation, I tell them, transformation is not just status quo. So don't live in this old, it's like a caterpillar to the butterfly. Caterpillar do not know that inside of you, there's a potential to fly. Right? So let's get out of this caterpillar mentality. You can fly, but you have to have your mind flexible. So I tell young people that I'm going to be speaking to schools and then university. They say, how can I get to the UN? As if UN is like a status quo. But no, we need your energy, the passion, the new way of thinking for the new world, which is the UN is more relevant to the world. And then I do believe this multinational multilateralism is so needed. That platform is needed, but we have to change to fly like a butterfly, beautiful butterfly. Thank you.
Great, and very passionately said, Keiko. Flexibility, follow your heart, and the butterfly who doesn't know that it's the caterpillar who doesn't know that it can fly, and maybe the butterfly doesn't remember anymore. It was once a caterpillar. So over to Cheryl. Cheryl, how what drove you in your career, and what are the specific qualities or capabilities that you benefited from, or conditions as well?
Okay, well, I got hooked. I got hooked really early on, I have to say. One of my first real positions in WFP, after kind of flopping around as a consultant for in headquarters for a few years, one of my first real positions was was starting cash transfers in Kenya. And I remember very distinctly, you know, one of the first programs that we started up, and I was in this community. We were having a meeting with the women. We were explaining to them, you know, how to use their ATM cards. They'd never had bank accounts before. Some of them had chosen mobile money. You know, M-Pesa was just starting out then. And some of them had chosen to have bank accounts and get ATM cards. And we were having a meeting, a conversation with them, and they were so excited. Like, really, one of them said to me, I feel like a school teacher now. Now in Kenya, in rural Kenya, they really value education. So school teachers are like the top of the top. Mm-hmm. And so with her ATM card, she went from feeling like, you know, one of the poorest of the poor in a very poor part of the country to feeling like a school teacher. Because she had an ATM card, she had a bank account, she could receive money from WFP, she could receive social assistance from her government, she could receive, you know, remittances from her sister who was working abroad and sending money home to her. She could save money, she could spend money. Can you imagine your life without a bank account? I mean, can you imagine what your life would be like? No. So the people that we're working with, most of them, no, all of them pretty much, until we help them get a bank account, don't have one. And so it's absolutely transformative. I got completely hooked on that. And also, you know, I was all through my university years and my teaching years, I was a single mom, and I was pretty much living a hand to mouth. Yeah. So like, you know, the paycheck comes in, and I don't know, car's broken down, and all the bills have to get paid, and the kid needs to go to school and everything, and the money's like, the accounts is empty at the end of the month. So I knew very well what it means to get like a monthly bump on whatever you happen to be earning yourself. And these women, make no mistake, these women are trying really hard. They're trying to earn money themselves. There's not a single one of those women who are just sitting waiting for money from WFP. No, they're selling charcoal. They're doing all kinds of little businesses, just trying to scrape out a living for their family. They're growing little patches of maize or whatever. So getting that cash transfer every month from WFP, that bump into their account, sometimes quite a big bump into their account, it's huge. It's so impactful. It gives them time to breathe, time to think about their future, time to think about their daughters' futures. Mm-hmm. So for me, I just got completely hooked on that. And frankly, what gets me out of bed every morning is how much more money can I get into how many more women's hands?
Wonderful. It's what we all appreciate hearing. Thank you, Cheryl and Keiko. So and for me, it was a strange start for me with Shell. It was not something that was on my radar. Actually, Shell asked me to work for them, and I looked at what it was that they had to offer and whether that was something that ticked my boxes. And it has always been ever since like that. Is this, so you get people who want to work for the UN or for a specific organization because of the image what they have about that organization. But for me, the question is always, so where is your passion? What do you really want to contribute to? And then, maybe think about what kind of setting is it in terms of local, regional, international, and then finally you fill in what kind of organization that would be. But you don't start with the organization first, right? And this at least is how it has worked for me. I always wanted to contribute to organizational change, to make workplaces more humane. And it is not accidental that therefore I also ended up with the UN, so that through creating more humane and harmonious workplaces, I also helped creating a more humane, world. And so now I work at peace within the organization. And ombuds, that was becoming an ombudsman was really accidental. I I had been asked early on to be a mediator, often by friends, often also friends who were older even than me. My first UN function, mediation was part of that. And in another function within another UN agency, the only one who didn't got the Nobel Peace Prize, by the way, I noticed that, you know, I was good at mediation between refugees and the staff we had, and among the refugees, because they were in camps and they had fights with each other. And then I thought, you know, I should do this as a full-time job. This is just great. And then I heard about ombudsman within the UN, and that they were going to look for ombudsman within peacekeeping. And I thought, that's what I want to become. And lo and behold, I succeeded. So for me, it's also about being focused, you know, very focused on what drives you, and making sure, like when I heard about organizational ombudsman, immediately within half a year I was certified. You know, it's like, okay, this is about me, so I make sure I take the right actions. I think what you said, so the passion and that you have something to contribute, that is certainly something what drives me, as well as the mandates of the UN and its organizations and like WFP too. So I've been very happy to have had this opportunity. And I think WFP for me stands out for the reasons that Keiko and as well you, Cheryl, you alluded to that. There is no stagnation, there's no status quo in WFP. It is enormous, quickly changing, and you know, it is forward thinking. It develops things that you don't see anywhere else, and I think that is a very important part for me, because thinking out of the box and in different ways is something that I personally value a lot. So I think that concludes the main questions, and now there are some other questions on the chat, and it is past 19:30, and somebody had already to leave, but let me take this time to bring these questions forward.
And if I may,
yes,
if anyone has a question and wants to unmute itself to ask it directly, please do so. Gabrielle, you decide the time.
Well, it also depends, of course, on the people attending. But so the first question is, you know, while we talk about the impact of the Nobel Peace Prize, what about the impact of COVID on the work and organization? So that's a good question. And Keiko already said something about what COVID meant for her, being out there, and and also for Cheryl, it had a certain impact. But let's talk about the organization first in brief, and then Keiko and Cheryl can add to this. Now, emergencies, that's just in the DNA as well of WFP. So we have emergencies in Yemen, in Nigeria, in the Sudan, in South Sudan, in so many other countries, more than ever before. And so a COVID emergency, the templates, the way to do, that's all there. And here in Rome, we have a situation room. We get the news, we get the geographical information, the geopolitical information 24 hours a day. There's people who work there who pull that all together. So we're very well as organization updated. Where are the hotspots? And what can we expect? And so it was the same with COVID. Now, in addition to that, the WFP, and few people know that, also manages the United Nations Humanitarian Air Services. And it moves humanitarians as well as humanitarian goods where it is needed. And at one point during COVID, it was the largest flying airline in the world when all the other airlines were grounded. At the same time, WFP set up hospitals for COVID patients among the humanitarians around the world. and distributed also a lot of protective gear, not only for WFP itself, but again for the whole humanitarian community. Yeah, maybe there's something that Cheryl and Keiko would like to add to that. So the question was again, what's the impact from COVID on our work and the organization? Cheryl.
Okay, thanks. I think it's a great question. I mean, so like I said, I was in Sudan when the first wave of COVID hit, and you'll remember that, you know, a lot of countries, including Sudan, closed their airspace, so there was no possibility to get in or out. The health systems, which are very fragile anyways, were completely overwhelmed. So we had colleagues unable to get, you know, to the hospital when they needed to. We had colleagues dying. It was an extremely traumatic time. None of us knew when we were going to see our families next. We had people in very deep field, very difficult places, unable to take a break. So personally, that was, you know, for all of us, that was a very, very demanding emergency. And I think WFP did an amazing job, like Gabrielle said, of, you know, within a few months getting field hospitals and humanitarian flights at least moving and so forth. How is it going to change the nature of our work going forward? Well, we know very clearly that this pandemic is going to be followed by a hunger pandemic. We know absolutely, and the IMF, you know, Christiana Georgieva has been speaking about this quite frequently, that especially the countries that were already fragile, they're going to have a terrible drop in growth that is going to throw them into, you know, very, very deep recession. If not depression, and there's going to be a debt crisis because those countries simply won't be able to continue to pay their debt. Now, when these types of things happen, poverty shoots up, and when poverty shoots up, hunger becomes very extreme. So this is where we're at right now. You know, the pandemic is largely under control from our perspective, from WFP's perspective, but the fallout from this pandemic is going to be with us for years, and we know for sure the needs are going to really, really go up. So what does WFP do? Because this year I think we reached, what was it, Gabrielle, 110 million people. In 2020. The needs are going to be so much vastly more than that. So we need to be, you know, doing what we do, which is as much direct delivery as we possibly can. But frankly, we need to start working very closely hand in glove with governments, because they're the ones that ultimately are going to need to be injecting more cash into their economy by doing these, you know, these cash transfers to their citizens, like most countries around the world are doing right now in response. So supporting those governments to get strong systems in place to be able to support their people and in a way that helps to stave off the recession. So we have a big change in business model. We're right on the cusp of it, frankly. In fact, during 2020, 37 governments reached out to WFP to ask us for support in delivering cash to their citizens for their own safety net programs. And so this is really on the rise. We see ourselves doing a lot less, well, not less direct delivery, but a lot more in a new business area for us, which is enabling governments to be able to provide for their citizens.
Yes, thank you, Kate. Thank you, Cheryl. That is a very good description of not only how you have experiences also, but what, you know, WFP's organization is facing. So over to Keiko. What are your views on that? How have you been affected by COVID, and
Yes.
what's next for us?
Cheryl said that some of the staff, maybe most of the national staff, either their family, they got COVID, and then there were, you know, some old members of family passed away. So difficult time. But what is, I take a pride and I was so happy was just in March already, I mean, our staff with the PPE we provided and they were there still distributing the food because the food was the main concern together with this WHO medicine. Yeah, for the government. So, and then all this PI, we were the only agency were out there. And then a PI was taking a photo. We are ever creative, you know, we have all this mobile. So they were taking a picture and then sending out. So that was on the media. And then it was like, wow, that was really, yeah, very flexible, but it was really heart-wrenching, like a migration, all this, because Kyrgyzstan, remember Gabrielle, like 35% of the GNP is from remittances. All these younger people went to Russia or Kazakhstan for the, yeah, for the money. So yeah, they were stranded at the border and it was really, 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 really difficult time. Yeah, so, but again, it may be a bit cliche, but this, we should see this challenge as an opportunity. Like, even the UN General Assembly was taken online. So, you know, it's like Gabrielle said, out of box, but what if there's no box? So what kind of world we want to see? You know, after all, this COVID revealed that we are, after all, human, you know, it's not the skin colors or, and then the leadership. And then different leadership, different kind of, you know, that's the diversity we are promoting, and then the gender, that's where, you know, this forum fit very, very well. Think differently because we really needed different thinking to go forward. So that also gives us this opportunity, like a climate change. Mountain was so ever clean in Kyrgyzstan. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Keiko. So, two questions. One is from Milena, and then after that one also from Kristen. Milena first.
Yes, thank you very much. It was a very interesting subject. And my question is about the 20th anniversary of the important resolution, UN resolution on 1325 on women, peace and security. And of course, war doesn't help to really combat hunger, of course. So what are your plans? Which way do you collaborate with this resolution to help women to be mediators and help to resolve the questions about war? Do you have any program involving women as mediators in the war, in the peace processes?
Okay, thank you, Milena. And I give this question to Cheryl with her gender expertise background. But I'd like also to say Resolution 1325 that is, of course, has an influence on every UN organization. Ours is gone from aid in situations of direct hunger crisis to also assistance to prevent hunger. And as Cheryl said, you know, working with governments, the resolution 3025 has an impact on how we approach our work in this respect. But for me, it can always be taken further and should be further taken. So I'm glad you're bringing it up. But over to Cheryl. What are your insights on this, Cheryl?
Well, you know, I wish I had more insights on it, frankly. But I was deputy representative for WFP in Sudan during the revolution. So you'll remember that about the middle of 2019, okay, the 30-year dictatorship of al-Bashir was ended. It was overthrown by a people's revolution, a peaceful revolution. It was amazing to be part of. And the women were very much on the front lines of the revolution. They were there during the sit-in, the long 40-day sit. Imagine doing a sit-in for 40 days in the Khartoum heat, 45 degrees, and they when the RSF, the paramilitaries, took over Khartoum and tried to quell the revolution, the women were very much subjected to all kinds of sexual assault and abuse, and so the transitional government that emerged after that revolution made a lot of commitments about ensuring that women were well represented, and of course that never happened. It didn't happen. In fact, in the new cabinet, when it was sworn in, there was just under 20% of the cabinet were women. Going forward now, the new cabinet's in, I think it's even less than 20%. It's just these promises just never happen, and somehow it all gets forgotten and brushed away. So it is a very serious problem, because in Sudan we are very much, WFP is very much engaged behind the scenes in quiet humanitarian diplomacy around the numerous conflict zones, including most recently, the border skirmishes with Ethiopia, and conversations with the Ethiopian government and the Sudanese government around the situation in Tigray. We do have a lot of scope to be bringing to the forefront the importance of having women's voices, of having women be part of the peace process in a real way.
Mm-hmm.
And frankly, we're not there yet. I have to be just very honest with you about it. Yeah. We're really not. So it's a great question, and it's definitely something that we need to spend some time thinking and investing in.
Yeah. No, thank you for sharing your experience and observations, Cheryl, and I totally agree. We're not there yet. And whether that is, what we see happening in what we provide as UN organization to the world, but also inside the organization. So as Ombudsman, as I look inside the organization, I have great concerns about gender equality, gender equity, the glass ceiling within the organization, the silencing of the women, the sidetracking of the women. And it's not gotten any better that much, if at all, recently. And this is something that I have been reporting about in my annual reports, and I will do this again in the one that I'm writing at the moment. So I want to go to Christina for her question. And I think then there's a last one, and then we close it. Thank you.
Oh, great presentations and awesome stories, really enjoying this. And I was thinking also about, you mentioned, okay, we have the pandemic, and then we are worried about the economy. And so a couple of things I'm wondering about, because you also mentioned closer work with governments, but how are you also working more with other UN agencies? How is the focus on self-sustaining solutions? And these are more of systemic thinking, because one thing is connected to another, and how is that also taken on by leadership? Because often this sort of big picture thinking and collaboration can often be associated with women as well. So there are probably several questions in the one here, but yeah.
No, great, Kristen, and it's so good to have you here. And you know, for everyone who's on the line, Kristen is the CEO and founder of the Women International Network, and she organizes yearly this wonderful conferences. And 3.5 years ago, I went with you and the group attending the 20th conference you had organized in Oslo, in your home country, and we went to the Nobel Peace Prize Institute, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So and here we are now. So I know a very good question. So let me give a quick introduction, and then I hand it over to Keiko and Cheryl. So what you know, the concept of working together with UN agencies is becoming more and more necessary, because you're becoming more and more interdependent, right? Yeah. This is a global development, and of course UN recognizes that too. And there is some overlaps between certain agencies, but at the same time we need each other. So there has been this reform of how do you organize that in the countries that you're active. So there is a resident coordinator. This is the most senior UN person with a specific training as well, who is the representative, let's say, and coordinates, as the word says, in country. You have also humanitarian coordinator for the specific because you can have technological transfer like the FAO does, or you have humanitarian support like we provide, and humanitarian is a specific ball game, if you like, right? So you have that too. I think that we're progressing pretty fast in that. My concern again would be, do we include sufficiently the women in there, both the women in the UN as well as the women in the country? And do we really use our power as well, or influence as UN to basically demand that, to get the women in the country on board as our talking partners, as implementing partners, and as advisors? Because we need to also get them to the table, and this is something that I definitely would like to see more. That said, Keiko, what are your thoughts about that? And then maybe Cheryl, maybe I can open the floor to you both on this.
Yes, brilliant question, and I fully agree with this, Gabrielle. And I'm out of the system right now, and then how I see, and I believe in the mass. Like you see all this demonstration and the George Floyd case, that the impact it has. So I believe in SDG, and then no one leaving behind, and we have to work with everybody, right? So Christian, you are doing great work, and in a way, so we have to start, not the how, because if we stuck in the how, we cannot. But then what do we want? What kind of a world do we want to create now and then for the future? Then it'll come out, and then leaders, definitely, but leaders have to take risk, right? So, and then being in the UNCT, I was a bit disappointing, because we have so many roadmap, and then how many times and how much energy we're spending taking a note minutes. I mean, if the Zoom can be recorded, why do we need a written minute which coming 2 weeks after? What's the use? Let's think differently and then do differently, right? So yeah, leader, the risk. So I was looking at the chat, you know, what the message, I mean, to the girls, it to speak up. And then, you know, courage is not something that, you know, you are born with. You know, I'm full of fear, like speaking like this, but even with the fear, we do, you know, risk, and the courage is we do it anyway. So that kind of, you know, bold leader is necessary, because we have to definitely move. It's clear that the world has to change. So that's yeah.
Boldness, yes, absolutely. I'm all for that. And the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals, right? Just for everyone to understand. So Cheryl, your thoughts?
Okay, well, I'm not going to speak politically correctly here, Kristen.
Right.
I have to be very honest with you. There are a lot of things in the DNA of longtime WFP people like us, and collaboration is not one of them. I have to be very honest with you. it is something that we need to work on. We need to learn what what we have used as an excuse, and there's a bit of truth in it, is that when there's an emergency, you can't respond by committee. You've got to take decisions. You have to act. You have to move. And WFP, we're built to move. We're built to move really fast. Our procedures, our processes, the level of experience that we have, we can put anything on the ground anywhere really, really quickly. And others aren't built to move. So that can cause expectations that are unrealistic around collaboration. That said, we provide common services, we call them. I think you're probably aware of that. So the humanitarian air service is one of them. So we'll move anybody who's humanitarian and their goods as well if they need. We usually run the logistics in an emergency as well. So for WHO we move medicine and and equipment. For UNICEF we move specialized nutritional products and school books and all kinds of things for them. We also run we are also responsible for the emergency telecoms. So in emergency, WFP is responsible for putting in the infrastructure for the entire humanitarian response. So in my opinion, that may be even better than collaboration. So we just get in there and we do it for everyone.
Yes, right. Yeah, a special form of collaboration. Thank you, Cheryl, and thanks for not being politically correct. And so this has been a great evening. And again, shame we missed Mutinta, the missing voice tonight, but I think you both made really up for that. There was one last question, and one new message coming in. But the last question is, the message that we would like to leave. The world needs a good message right now, what is ours, and to women in particular. Keiko, you already mentioned something. Can you say it briefly to all of us, and then Cheryl, and then I will end, and then we go back to Gurley and Mirela. Thank you. Keiko, what's your message?
So
good message.
Women, girls, speak up.
Great.
Even fight the fears, speak up.
Yeah, overcome your fears, speak up. Very important. Thank you, Keiko. Cheryl.
Thank you.
Well, I don't know. I want to leave on a hopeful note. Really, I really firmly believe that we can change the world. I think that if we work together, if we put our minds to it, if we become more ourselves, not try to be reshaped into a mold that someone expects of us. I think together we can really make a huge difference in many people's lives. So that's my hopeful.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you both. And then I like to add to that, please think for yourself and think about yourself and put yourself first. If you put yourself first, you have most to give to others, and so they benefit most from your talents. But think about yourself. What is it that is your passion and drives you? What is it that you need to give your best? But also think for yourself. As Cheryl said, don't let you put yourself in a mold. But I think at this moment in the world, we need people badly who think for themselves, right? And so don't wait for any leader. Don't wait for the leaders, right? You are the leader. We are all together the leaders of this moment, even if the circumstances are hard. And I think we need to do it together in community work. We need to connect in communities. This is what we're doing here tonight, to listen and to hear from each other. And more than ever, do we need courageous contributions So with all that together, thank you. I have so enjoyed myself to hear you, Keiko and Cheryl, and great questions from the audience. Thank you so much for that. Back to the studio, Girly and Mirela.
Girly, thank you. I just will take 30 seconds to thank you for this interesting discussion. I hope I hope it would have lasted even more, because yeah, I learned so many things that I didn't know about your organization. So thank you very much, and thank you for the work you're doing.
Right. Well, thank you for the opportunity to host you, Keiko, Cheryl, of course, Gabrielle, and to all the members of the community. Thank you also, Kirsten, for being with us tonight. We all know that WFP's contribution is seizable, and their work will only become more difficult in the coming years as climate change wreaks havoc on the agricultural sectors as well, and conflicts prevent food from reaching the areas in the greatest needs. While we are here in Rome, in our small way, I'm sure that we can make a difference. And this is the reason why we gathered tonight, to learn how to do it, to inspired by each one of you. And we will never stop. We will continue being the spokesperson, gender equality, women empowerment, and leadership. And we're going to see you next week. If you could make it, you are more than welcome to join us. We're shaping success through communication and digital era. So see you soon then. Have a lovely evening, and thank you again.
Well, thank you, Girly. Thank
Bye.
you, Mirela. Thanks, Keiko, Cheryl.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye, everyone. Thank you for being there with us. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.